Teachers would repeatedly tell that he's going to do nothing out of his life. Childhood should be fun. Childhood is about enjoying yourself. The gut feel is sometimes guided by somebody else's gut. So this is my mother's gut that was guiding it. Even today I don't know what next. What's waiting for us after this, I don't know. But it's the choice you make. It's your failures that transform you, not your successes. You will have a nitro booster in your engine, speeding you up. It's until then that you keep dabbling around. But the moment you find that question is the time that you feel that your life is complete. You add another dimension to this entire thing of life. An atheist is not a person who does not believe in God. He's a person who doesn't listen to his inner voice. If you're fit, you need not be healthy. Unfit person can be very healthy. We want instant coffee, instant love, instant gratification, instant pizza, instant marriage, instant divorce. Actual substance is missing in this whole story. So somewhere it's our responsibility, and I'm a part of it.
Hi guys, I'm Ishita
And I'm Kanishka.
and welcome to
Drop the filter. Today with us we have Dr. Vishal Rao. Hi, doctor.
Hi.
How are you feeling today?
Great, it's a weekend. Positive, relaxed.
No, we love that. I think weekends are usually for the downing sessions of the entire week.
Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi guys, I am Dr. Vishal Rao. I am a surgical oncologist. I am at HCG as the Dean and the Country Director for Head and Neck Surgical Oncology. I wear multiple avatars. I work with the state government as a part of the Karnataka Legislative Assembly Advisor and the part of the high-powered committee for cancer control and tobacco control. I also work with the federal government, the central government, as a part of the principal scientific advisor to the Prime Minister's consultative group as a part of Mission Uttan governing council. I also play a lot of other roles. I'm an inventor. I've got about 18 patents. I've worked on devices, drugs, innovations. So policy has been a part of my interest. I'm the chairman currently for the Institute of Policy Research. And in addition to that, I also run my innovation labs, drug discovery labs, and that's how I spend my day.
That's amazing. I felt useless for a second, but that's amazing to hear. Before we get into a lot of cancer theories and everything, what was your childhood like?
My childhood was fun, and I think there was a serial called Bahubali, Karnataka's Bahubali, which the Kannada channel had done. I remember they just had called me as one among the guests there in this Bahubali serial, and they surprised me with my mom coming on the screen and asking how was his childhood like. She's like, terrible. She's like, it's so notorious. He's just, I don't even think, I think almost many of the teachers would repeatedly tell that he's going to do nothing out of his life. This guy's going to just waste his life if he's going to live like this. And it was so much fun listening to her being that candid mom who just said, I really don't know what he was about to do. I had no hopes in what he's planning to do with himself and things like that. So I think childhood was fun. Childhood should be fun. Childhood is about enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
And not to take yourself too seriously.
I agree.
True.
But so when did you take this step? Like, did you always think you'd want to be a doctor, or something happened that made you want to be a doctor?
So I have my dad always told me that if you're destined to be hanged, you won't be drowned. So funny, but I always wanted to be a bike racer.
Oh my God.
My interest, and my dad was into biking, and I had absolute craze for bikes. So my first option was bike racing. My second option was astrophysics. My third option was mathematics. These were my passions. Biology never came in front at all.
It's crazy how you went from a very risky, bike racing to like actually saving lives.
Yeah.
If it makes sense. So
Yeah, and if you look at the perspective of it, I still like bikes. I ride bikes, and I think I was just telling a co-biker that my dad taught me a very simple thing. When we used to bike, he used to tell me you need to understand three things: where the brakes is, where the accelerator is, and where the space is. Then you win a race. Okay. And I follow his principles a lot today in terms of living the way I would like to look at it. I feel life is interconnected. Your choices are interconnected. And today, what I'm doing has to do still a lot with physics, to do with mathematics, and to do with biking, and still live biology
Correct.
as a life.
Yeah.
So, if I have to reframe the whole thing and look at it, I would say that yes, destiny took me towards biology because I got extremely good marks in biology. But I was never too fond of it because biologists generally don't ask too much of whys. Whereas patterns in mathematics and physics have a lot of answers which are tangible towards the depths of questions. So I always believe that biology has its fundamentals in chemistry, which is answered by physics, which is uncoded by mathematics. So I just was obsessed with mathematics, and today I'm a part of the World Mathematical Oncology Society. I'm still a part of some work with quantum physics with the groups on with Cambridge and a couple of others working on physics and cancer, and still looking at biking and enjoying my life.
You didn't leave your biking because I think that was your first love.
Yeah.
Which
That's
is really nice because I
yeah.
think, like you said, I think the reason you chose to become a doctor was your marks. Is there something that felt like maybe this is not right, or you just went with your gut feeling?
I do, I must be truthful to all of you. I still tell you that look, the gut feel is sometimes guided by somebody else's gut. So this is my mother's gut that was guiding it. And she said,
Makes sense.
Vishal, take medicine up, and this is what it would be. And I didn't have a gut at my point at that time. And she just made this choice and said, this would be the best place for you. I think you should take up biology, and medicine is something that would do, considering your rank, and it's a merit seat. You should take up medicine. So it was a choice that was thrust upon me very benevolently. I'm saying it. But at that time, I think broadly people would say engineering karo ya medicine karo.
Yeah.
You wouldn't
Correct.
be allowed to have a career
Arts and
choice to
com.
say
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
today a person is sitting as a YouTuber or somebody is sitting as a drone
Podcasters.
runner,
Yeah.
podcaster, blah blah blah, whatever, chef, any options. You've got zillions of options in career choices, and I think that choices where the freedom of those choices wouldn't exist at those times. And so
Very
I
true.
went into medicine, and the one interesting fact that I see about medicine that happened to me was the part of finding ambition with purpose. So I was doing my medicine, which everybody does medicine. It's another degree. You're doing an engineering, you're doing a medicine. When purpose finds you, you see there's a small switch in this whole game of life. And that's when I think there is a kind of a shift, sometimes a U-turn, you re-look and you connect dots. I think that's the beauty that I saw in medicine for me. It's because of people whom I saw in medicine in the college that I was working, who had touched lives, and that kind of molded me to looking at this as a very magical science that actually was having a potential beyond the fragments that I saw with physics and mathematics. I could see in biology after a long time, and I saw that this could be magic. And
Yeah.
that's when I actually started loving medicine.
Yeah, I think I mean, you found the right purpose for yourself, which made you want to believe that this is something that would be the best case scenario for you.
Yeah, a calling that I felt came along because it happens to you somewhere as you walk along.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But why did you opt for a head and a neck oncologist? Because I think there are other options as
Option
well.
that
Yeah.
So why
I think
this?
also adding to that, why an oncologist?
this is a very good question, and I want to be known to many people who today also ask me, and
Can I add to this? If I'm not wrong, you like people get the rank, like imagine like it depends upon your marks, right? Which field you get, like pediatrics, oncologists,
Sure.
if I'm not wrong.
Sure.
Is it right?
That's right. And comes choices, correct? You have choices again in this, because there'll be a number of seats that will be there in a field. There'll be a number of seats that will be there in a place.
Correct.
And then you make choices, which is guided, which is. So by the time I'd completed medicine, there was some kind of an intangible force that was driving me towards certain questions. And I'm telling this because I think today, when we look at career and we are looking at options, sometimes because of the deluge of information, we are lost. So people come to me and ask me funny questions like, which branch do I choose and where will I be successful? So, and I tell them, I really don't know that answer. That answer should come from you.
within.
I can't tell you where you are going to be successful. Because when I chose a place, I did not choose success as the denominator.
Absolutely.
I chose the area of my passion and the question as the denominator. Okay. So when I go back to this, and if I tell you that my first year in medicine, where you spend time with the cadavers, the dead bodies, to learn, you know, I used to spend time trying to find out the name of that cadaver, not just call them a cadaver, because it was somebody who gave their body so that we could study.
Study it.
And we would make that effort to find out from the mortuary to say what was his identity, what was his life like, was he actually. You would not get it in everybody, but I'm just telling you that that's the depth you find in knowledge. And you know, there was one area which was the voice box, which I would love. I would dissect that for hours. I had a professor called Humbarwadi, who was one of my teachers. We used to dissect it for hours and hours, that we would just dissect the voice box and we would dissect the nerve, we would find new plexus in the nerves and we would write papers on it. Now, when I look back into life now and look at my work on inventions of the voice box or the work around it, and I look back at the first year of my medicine, I feel it all connects in some strange way, because the way I'm looking at now is that I'm connecting the dots when I look back. And that's what I want to tell my friends here, that we all connect the dots when we look back, not when we look in front.
Right.
So my choices became a part of my life today, because I connected with them, with my gut, with the flow, and I went chasing something that I felt just kept calling me. Now, that could be a page, a paragraph in a book that you connect with, and you start having a dialogue with it. You start speaking with it, and that speaks to you. Hold on to it. I'm saying don't leave it. There's something out there.
Correct.
So voice was something that connected with me. The voice problem connected with me. The voice organs connected with me. The vocal cords connected with me. The nerves of the vocal cord connected with me. They started talking to me. So that was a chapter in which I used to get stuck. I used to flip every other chapter, but that chapter I would get stuck. I would start reading deeper. I would go deeper. I would spend more hours. If I had 10 hours, I would spend 9 in the voice box and 1 hour in all the rest of the chapters. So now ask me why, I don't know. But go towards that time. So if I have to layer this out, and let me put it in another different way, if you have to look at this, we have our intelligence that guides us. Then you have a layer of instinct, that you instinctively feel that I should do this. And then you have a layer of intuition. And these are 3 different layers of evolution of disconnect. Okay, I'm not talking connect, but disconnect. Because intelligence wise comes from knowledge. You create a certain platform because intelligence comes from a certain level of knowledge. Instinct comes from prior experiences accumulated. So instinctively are able to do something. Like in a surgical step, I instinctively do this or that.
Correct.
And then you have intuition. We have no clue.
It just is.
Yeah, it just intuitively feels that I should just do this. So I know it's a risky job, because you're going on an unthreaded path. You're walking in an uncharted territory. But the beauty of life is walk.
Correct.
I know that there's no destination here. It's just the beauty of the journey that you're experiencing when you're doing this. And today you're sitting with the example that just shows that.
Yeah.
Just to walk. Even today, I don't know what next. What's waiting for us after this, I don't know. But it's the choice you make.
Yeah. I think in like terms that we use now, it's like just go with the flow with what you believe in. It will all like work out in the
I have a
end.
nicer quote for this: "Be the dead fish. Go with the flow."
Oh wow. Yeah. I think that makes more sense.
Sometimes, be the dead fish.
Yeah. No, I agree. Because I think that's how like sometimes even like when we think that something's off, that's not happening the right way, we just tell ourselves maybe that's what is chosen. So you just go with it and figure out what happens and take the steps after it's done.
That's
Sometimes.
true. And
Yeah.
now you got the love for your voice box. So how did you, like, was there a patient in your career which you got like a special memory connected to while treating them?
I think what hurts you most changes you,
Correct.
transforms you. It's your failures that transform you, not your successes.
Yeah.
The failure not to give voice to a patient, a security guard, was the area or the point at which something transformative happened. Because I think over decades, and I think this is a interesting part, that it's difficult to find a good question.
Yeah.
If you ask researchers and PhDs and others, you'll see sometimes you spend years searching for a question.
Questions, yeah.
So this is true for life also. The day you find the right question for your life that defines you, you will you will you will have a nitro booster in your engine, speeding you up. It's until then that you keep dabbling around. But the moment you find that question is the time that you feel that your life is complete. You add another dimension to this entire thing of life, because you find ambition meets purpose. And I think it's that particular question that you search for. And in this patient, he had asked me, saying, he was a security guard. He said, I lost my voice, I've lost my job. Now what next? And I was like, we'll figure it out. We'll look at what can we do with doing some bike rides and raising money and trying to help him with a voice box which was from US or Europe. And that's how the whole story started for me, with a failure thing. And my friend, my partner Shashank, coming in and saying that, how long do you think you're going to do these bike rides to raise money for people? Why don't we invent something of our own and build this up? And that spun the theory for me of going from being a clinician to a clinician innovator and a doctorpreneur and
Yeah.
and whatever else.
If I'm
Wow.
not wrong, the thing that you guys invented was a $1, like a voice box. Do you want to explain how it functions and what it helps for a person who doesn't have a voice?
So when we started off with this problem, we wanted to do it for a handful. And we realized that these were security guards, watchmen, workers. So at that time, we had a vague idea of what we wanted to do, and everybody told us it's impossible. They told us the standard rule of the game is not possible. There's only two patents in the world: US, Europe, that's it. The globe is controlled by them. And they had only given access to about 50 countries, but there were still about 144 countries who needed it. And cost was a major hurdle. The problem with the machines, and they were both of them were marketed by companies that didn't have services, that were out for a sale, and if it gets spoiled within a month or something, there was no replacements. So there were a lot of problems associated with it. The costs were prohibitively high for poor patients. So many questions were there in front of us, and when we started working, it was all saying that, oh, it's impossible to do this. And we said, can we disrupt this whole thing? So we wanted to make it accessible, affordable, and affable. And in doing so, I said, as I was talking to you before we started the shoot, we said we build a framework of philosophy before we create a product or a process. So what was the philosophy that drove us? Was we felt speech and communication was the foundational part of a society, and a right to peace, justice, and dignity.
Correct.
So there were many of these patients who were bereft of it just because of costs. And we said speech is a right and not a privilege. So we felt that why is it that imagine if two of you are there and I'm telling that Kanishka will speak and Ikshita won't because you don't have the money but she has. Then we've created a world which is not equitable today.
Correct.
And I think my question was that when God created us, He gave us a voice box for free. We are all speaking here
Yeah.
today.
Absolutely.
So why should money be the differentiating factor here that decides who will speak and who won't? That was the intent with which we wanted to do it. And we built this along the way and created that. And today we know we needed it for 144 countries. And it's a whole long journey. But from make in India to create in India to setting up a factory, which is not my forte, correct, as a surgeon, but still building a silicon factory, one of the state of the art factories which India is proud of today. And our products have been shown in Davos in the World Economic Forum, where the Honorable PM's office took it and displayed it, to getting a case study being done at Harvard, where the people understood it, to having book chapters on this whole thing and a Netflix series or a documentary.
Oh, what do you want to like tell the name?
They did a small documentary. The Prime Minister's office was the principal scientific advisor to the Prime Minister. Released a documentary partnered with Netflix on 8 lives of 8 innovators called Naye Bharat Ki Nayi Pehchan. To going till there was a journey, I believe, was about believing in yourself.
Absolutely, because it sounds wonderful to imagine
Yeah.
that. I don't think even you would have imagined that this was going to be happening. I knew you always, like, you knew you always had a connection with vocals, but did you ever think that this is going to be you doing something like this?
Absolutely not. And I think we should not also.
Yeah.
At that moment, what you feel right and what, as you said, the gut feel is there, you get the right feel, and you feel positive about yourself and you're
Yeah.
impacting another life, I think is a right energy you should work with. And that could, I think, give you the path to the next step. As I tell my cancer patients today, that when I start from my home to here, the studio, I didn't see the studio first, correct? I saw a signal, then I saw a flyover, and then I saw another road. I saw a right turn. I eventually come here. The problem with the world is we want to see that studio at the time when you sit inside the car.
Correct.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that way. Life's journey has multiple milestones at which you stop.
And
Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah.
But I think you spoke about how you talk to your cancer patients about a lot of these things and you explain them in different ways. But how do you address someone for the first time and you tell them they have cancer? Because cancer, for the longest time and even now, has been one of those, problems or diseases that really affects not just the person having it, but also people around them.
It has been, and I think I had a learning perspective on this, which I think was interesting. I have to narrate it that cancer was a stigma
Correct.
earlier. It is still to a great extent today in many places, but I changed my perspective. I've just completed writing my book on this called Heal Your Life, Heal Your Cancer. And I gave a TED talk on this some time back on the power of negative thinking. Okay. And what I learned about cancer was cancer word has been given a lot of negative connotations to it.
Absolutely.
True.
Whereas, we all here in this room started with one cell and became a trillion cells in a span of 9 months.
Correct.
Nobody called us a tumor, correct?
Yeah.
We were all given the most beautiful, endearing words to be used when we were in our mother's womb.
Correct.
Now, here are cells that are growing in our body, which are our own cells. They are not some foreign attack from another place. But yet we use the most demeaning terms on them. We use the most harsh words on them, like killing, resection, elimination. So the stigma of cancer needs to be shifted, and this conversation needs to be changed towards healing and not killing. And, from the word of curing towards moving towards the path of healing. gives you a different approach of love towards these cells. As much as love that the cells need when it's growing in the womb, these cells, when provided with love, change kinetics. And I believed my approach in science changed when I started seeing people who have healed themselves versus people who are trying to cure themselves. And I realized that in this journey, as an oncologist who practices day in and day out and sees life and death closely, I believe that the people who choose the path of healing are the people who own the problem inwards.
Correct.
And it's an inward journey. So they insource it, not outsource the whole disease.
Yeah.
So insourcing this disease is a different approach than outsourcing it to a physician and saying, give me that drug and that chemotherapy or that surgery versus that machine and radiation, which means he's not participating in his treatment. And he's outsourcing his entire body, whether it's cancer or any other disease for that matter today, to another approach of insourcing it, where a person takes it and says, I'm a part of the healing process. This body is mine, and you're entering and helping me heal this body with various approaches. It gives a different dimension of healing to a patient who is going through this thing, and that journey becomes much easier and better, more empowered. And that path of healing has more power and energy to it than the limited approach, what we call as giving the fear and the anxiety to it. So when I start with this to a patient and I tell them, look, what you're having is your own cells. Don't create panic on them. And I tell them that fourth C, which is the last stage of cancer, is not death. There are people who have come out of that, and these are the stories of those people. There's a different perspective I give to a patient, saying that you insource this whole thing and let's begin a journey, and I'm with you in this. And that changes the perspective of approaching this thing than creating panic and fear to them.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it'll cause more of negative vibes, energies all around, and that can like really,
Change the thing around.
yeah, because as you said, it's in-source more than the outsource you're giving out.
I think this is, like you said, not just with cancer, with any disease, even if it's a small thing or something slightly as big as cancer or something else. I think everything starts from within.
And that's why they say the healing touch, which I still believe the old books of Bailey's and the books of Ayurveda or any book of good science teaches you, or the art of healing, or what you call Hastaguna, is about actually looking at healing as an art and as a science, both. And I believe that the physician has the power, somewhere. In fact, in one of my recent talks at the Satyasai ashram in Puttaparthi, they had asked me to speak at the conference on human values, and there I spoke something very interesting as a perspective. And I said, we've always heard this term called Vaidyo Narayano Hari. That means the physician is God. I had added a small twist into this context and said that it is Vaidyo Devo Rogi Narayano Hari. We are in an era where you should treat patient as God, and the physician should play the role of a demigod and serve that God. And that I'm telling because somewhere down the line we've lost the plot many times, even in medicine. So if your presence itself as a physician can give comfort to the patient just by not talking, first just by your presence. If your touch can make him feel more calm and relaxed, and thereafter your words can calm him down, it's more powerful than you doing a prayer.
Absolutely.
And then your treatment as a good surgeon could be equivalent to a good Ashwamedha Yagna that you're doing. So I'm just telling you more as a person who believes that an atheist is not a person who does not believe in God. He's a person who doesn't listen to his inner voice. So I don't believe in this that you go to a temple or a church or a mosque and then you pray 5 times to 25 times. I'm saying, but if you are not able to, as a physician, able to give that healing touch to that patient and remove that fear. And today the biggest fear that I see, whether it's a cancer or any other disease, is creating it in your mind, which is the Frankenstein you create. And then after that, it gets manifested in your physical body.
True.
Absolutely. I
Right.
think the idea is like think good. Like I feel like anything you say, there was a, I think there's a book, I don't remember the book, but it said that, not every thought is taken in as manifestation. It becomes a, not everything that passes by your brain is a thought. Like there are certain things that pass your mind every single second. But the second you think on it and keep rethinking on it is when you're making your mind believe that that could be true, and then translates into maybe reality. Because if you believe that that's becoming true, I think that's the art of manifestation. When you believe that something that you're thinking becomes true, and sometimes that could be wrong things, when you start pressurizing on facts that you don't want it to be true, but you're thinking about it so much and scaring yourself that it could become reality.
I have two perspectives on this, if I may share. One that I see, we did a small study where we looked at oncotheology. We were looking at God and what's God doing when these cancer cells grow. So in our labs, we were looking at when cancer cells were growing. We started looking at people with Phyllis crystal healings, Reiki healings, and people who had come for meditation who would sit and meditate on the cells to look at how cancer cells were growing and would the kinetics change. And we also created a 21-gram questionnaire, some questionnaire which actually studied how does one's belief system affect his overall outcome of cancers. Anyway, long story, but 21-gram questionnaire comes from the thought of Duncan McDougall from Massachusetts, who actually had a question कि जब हमारे शरीर से प्राण निकलती है, when the soul leaves the body, there must be something. If soul is real, then there must be an energy to it, a mass to it.
Correct.
So he came to a conclusion when he kept these people dying on these sensitive weighing scales that the soul weighed 21 grams because that was the weight change. So it was a funny experiment.
Yeah, I've read
on a
about
lighter
this.
note.
Yeah.
So now I shifted this to a questionnaire and said, let's question the belief system of many of our patients and look at it and what do they believe in? Do they believe in God? Do they believe in Guru? Do they believe in prayer? Do they believe if I wear black today it's going to be a bad omen for me or this? We studied belief system. We had an interesting observation. I'm just sharing some initial facts saying that I saw that a pattern of patients who were doing very well but were negative thinkers were doing extremely good. And I couldn't explain this whole logic because they're negative thinkers. They're all the time thinking negative, but they're doing well. They're doing extremely well. So how would this pattern be explained by us?
Yeah.
So when we went deeper into this, and I think this is a perspective which you need to just look at as a different dimension to the whole truth of life. These were doing extremely well. And for me, that was quite baffling because I always told patients,
Be positive.
be positive. Whereas here, a group of negative thinkers were doing extremely well. And there was a patient sitting in front of me all the time cripping and saying, "Sahi sir, sab kharab ho jayega sir." So patient, मैं नहीं मरने वाला हूँ sir. And I kept telling him, आप बीमारी से तो ठीक हो गए हो, सब अच्छा चल रहा है, नहीं sir, but फिर भी अभी कुछ है नहीं वैसे life में.
Reverse psychology?
I'm saying his way of thinking was every time he would sit in front of me saying ये ठीक नहीं है, वो ठीक नहीं है, प्रॉब्लम है, ये मैं मरने वाला हूँ, बीमारी आ जाएगा. ऐसे नहीं, अभी सब ठीक है, इतने साल हो गए, नहीं सर, वो शायद नेक्स्ट साल आ जाएगा, whatever. But in this whole process, as I looked at them more deeper, I understood there was one important equation which I want to share with you all. These patients had the lowest amount of expectations and the highest acceptance of life. That was their secret.
Wow.
And I realized that flow is really not a negative thinker. He has very low expectation of life. His expectation of life is chalta hai. He has no expectations on
He's
this.
accepted that this is going to take him somewhere else.
Yeah, he's accepted on whatever is going to be there is accepted for him. So he's okay with it.
But he's happy with that acceptance. But that's low, like the
Whereas a positive thinker who all the time says मैं अच्छा हो जाऊंगा, अच्छा हो जाऊंगा, अच्छा हो जाऊंगा, and he keeps saying this is where the manifestation theory goes wrong. You're saying that I can manifest it. No, you can't. I can, as an oncologist who sees life and death in the same plane, weighing it both equally, I would say that it's not easy to do that. So no matter how much of positive affirmations he did, he couldn't because God was an absentee landlord who played a different role there. It had nothing to do with it because his expectations were so high, he couldn't accept reality the way it was. And he was dying. So for me, I looked at it from the perspective of quantum physics and said quantum physics explains this better, physics explains this better, mathematics explains this better, of looking at reality. The earlier physics in the 19th and 20th century said that reality is independent of observation. That means you and I exist no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, even if I'm not there, you both exist. But the quantum physics era opened up with the experiments of from Einstein to looking at Schrodinger's cat and others, which talked about electron as a wave, electron as a particle, and then saying the power of this manifestation is to look at wave or particle. A thought is a wave and a particle is reality. And they said that reality is not independent of observation. So yes, you create your own realities, but then there is a certain level of frequency at which you do that, synchronicity. So I interestingly recently asked a patient of mine whom we had given up, and the tumor was very bad. It had spread quite significantly to certain areas below the brain. The operable chances were very minuscule. Yet there was a Swamiji from Gulbarga who wanted me to operate on him and take this case up as a challenge. And the patient was very adamant and said, go for it. And I was the least confident among all of them. And I said, it's so complex, how are we going to do this? But we did do it and we operated on him. And then after that, within a span of 9 months, the tumor recurred. And he said, go ahead and again do the surgery. And I again went in and did it. And then after that, the tumor within a span of a year and a half again came back. And this time it had spread. And I said, no, this is not to be touched at all. And he said, no, you should. And I went in the third time. And this time I was really thinking to myself, am I going against science, logic? And I mean, yes, there was science, there was logic, but they were not fully on my side this time. He came to me now 8 years later.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
And I asked him, I said, look, I want to understand from you, how did you manifest your own healing? Because you seem to be a guy who's a maverick.
Yeah.
I have not seen you asking me any questions in the OPD. Am I going to be all right? Am I going to live? How long do I have? No questions asked to me. So what is it that you did that created this magic? And you know what he told me? Something very interesting. And this is where you learn from your patients. He said, I manifested my own healing. And I said, that's beautiful. I said, you just healed yourself. He said, it's 8 years. And you know how he walks in? He walks in into my OPD and he looks at me and says, you become a little weak. And I look at him and I said, are you serious? You're just going on. That's how our conversation began. So when I looked at him and I said, so what made you manifest this healing? How did you manifest this? He told me something very beautiful. He said, I had reached a point when I wanted nothing. And I think that's a very powerful place to be in.
Yeah.
Correct? When you want nothing. And at that point, the universe may want to give you the best of what is required at that moment for you.
Correct.
Which for him was to be an example for the world, to be an example for his family, for his town, to be an example against all odds, to just live through the impossibility of the cancer and stage 4C.
Yeah.
He did it. He manifested his healing. But at a point at which he just went into a very deep level of intuition where the mind just overcame a certain barrier of wanting something.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I want to share with you guys, to say that, you know, when we say and repeat, can we create our own reality? It's not easy to create that reality, even if it's bad.
Correct.
But yes, at a certain frequencies it does. I'm not the expert at it. I'm just an observer. I'm just a mere observer who's making observations and making inferences out of my observations. I'm a good scientist, so I'm just writing it down.
Yeah. No, that is very interesting because these factors, at some point, I mean, there are so many things trying to explain different things to you. So it really like helps you rewire and wire yourself again and again as things come your way.
Yeah, plus I also feel it was all about how his perspective was about his own life. I mean, he did not care what everyone else was telling, and he's alive and he survived that, which is crazy. Also, I think I've seen a lot of young people getting cancer nowadays, what are the early symptoms of cancer which people should be aware of nowadays?
I broadly would say, not to make the topic too heavy, but
Yeah.
on a broader sense to say that if you have a problem, a symptom that is not settling for more than a month, okay, an ulcer, a swelling, a cough, a bleeding, a sore throat, or any other unusual symptom that you're experiencing in your body that's telling you that something's not all right. And believe me, your body is your first inner alarm. It'll tell you. So if you're feeling that there's something abnormal for more than a month that you're experiencing, and you're able to also have a physical, tangible element to it, go and show it to a physician. It could be a part of a non communicable disease, a chronic disease, one among which could be cancer. Now, if you are at high risk, which means if you have had a strong family history, if you have had, if you are a smoker or a regular consumer of alcohol, then it's better that you get yourself screened for cancer.
You just mentioned family history. So, do you think genetics, as you said, will play a role? But can you outrun the genetic, like the family history of, like, imagine like my past, like my family history has like cancer patient, my mom has cancer, and further. Do you think it can outrun in me or in my future kids?
So there are two parts to this that we look at in cancer. We say cancer is a genetic disease. It need not be hereditary. You're getting my emphasis on this. Cancer is a genetic disease. It need not be hereditary. You have to segregate the two. Hereditary means it's going to come from generation to generation. But the power of now is that this generation has the power to readjust its immune system and the genetic mechanism through a good diet, lifestyle, and through your environment that you live in and habits that you have and your physical exercise to mold and prevent it and reduce the risk and improve the overall immune system, which is why a lot of the world's work has been shifted towards not just the cancer cell but the immune system.
True.
Yeah, and I think people are trying to be more healthy nowadays. What I've seen, like,
In the larger spectrum.
yeah, like our generation, or maybe what I've seen, people have stopped consuming alcohol that much because nowadays people are scared.
Also, I think alongside scared, I think people want to be healthy. In terms of, there are a lot of people who are transforming from, say, sleeping at 3 a.m. to actually going to bed at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. In the larger way, if you see, like, there are a lot, like, I don't want to generalize it, but there's a larger sector, like a larger group of people who want to adapt and make that their lifestyle. I'm not saying that they're already, but everyone is walking towards making themselves live in a more healthier and a better lifestyle for their own self, I think.
I would also add to say there is a common a common myth that if you're fit, you're healthy.
Yeah,
If you're fit, you need not be healthy.
correct.
And an unfit person can be very healthy.
True, I guess.
Now, this is the gap that I feel is the missing understanding that people don't get. So, it's not always about having that thing. So, the dimension of fitness and the dimension of health come together because diet and nutrition have to go together. Your overall environment, your habits, your activity, all of this when they come together is when actually health happens. And fitness is one dimension or aspect of health. Fitness.
Also, I wanted to know, you said that cancer is a genetic disease. Do you think people can, I mean, for example, there is no cancer history in the family. Do you think those people can still develop cancer because of their habits they have?
Yeah. I am saying that cancer is a genetic disease. 5% only is hereditary. If you're going to smoke, let's say we have 6,000 chemicals, 70 carcinogens, every day you're going to consume it, you are going to be prone for cancers. if you're going to smoke along with alcohol, alcohol is a great solvent. You increase double the risk of cancer because most of these carcinogens gets absorbed together. So alcohol and cigarette are great friends together. So you increase the risk of cancer. You are having food today which is filled with carcinogens, preservatives, adulterants, chemicals, pesticides, preservatives. You're going to have them, all of these junk foods every day. You are anyway increasing your risk of cancer. So cancer today has become a mindset in my perspective. I have another philosophical approach to looking at it. I say that we are living in an instant, unlimited and a more era. We want instant coffee, instant love, instant gratification, instant pizza, instant marriage, instant divorce. We are running into an instant rapid era. We want unlimited food when your body's needs are a little limited. I'm on a one meal diet. I love eating limited stuff, and I feel that it's serving my purpose by living with that meal. You want buy one get three free today, more era, correct? Now that's a cancer mindset. So we've brought in a mindset into the society wherein you've actually at an energy level itself ingrained your system's electrical wirings into working in a way to create cancer through your mindset. And then what as a follow-up part, the social determinants of it are fast food, quick food, the recent raids that they found in the food commissioner's office where they found tons of colors being used, where paneer, where palak was there was color, where there was cotton, there was some chemical industrial element,
Yeah,
where
when
there
the
was
paneer was the fake
Fake
one.
paneer.
all of it was what for? Calcium carbide to quickly ripen the mango, to looking at dog bones being used to decarbonize sugar, to I mean if I go on and say that these guys
We both are vegetarian, by the way, so that's kind of crazy for us.
yeah, correct, but your assumption of life is your assumption
Yeah.
because you're assuming when you look at that packet that there is something called as responsible consumerism today. That means the manufacturer is responsible for the act he commits by hiding something when he's selling it to a consumer. And I believe that that etiquette and that ethical consumerism has to come back today into this markets, which is where WHO is talking about farm to plate
Yeah.
and keeping it safe. I believe in the next 10 years, food will be the single most important determinant that's going to decide everything. So if you all want to do something about it, I think that's something we should do something about healthy food from farm to plate.
I think that's a very nice perspective because right now everybody wants healthy food options. Now, for example, if there's a protein bar brand, there are a lot of nutrition and people are not easily believing it that it's so healthy. You know, there's always a negative side to every food item that's being consumed because at the end of the day, it is packaged food. So there needs to be some sort of preservative added to it for it to last as long as it claims to be
No,
in that
also
level.
adding to that, I think a lot of people are faking their protein margins because I think I recently saw an ice cream brand which got like busted through because they were telling it is zero sugar, guilt-free ice cream, but when they actually checked it, it has more sugar than the actual like
Normal ice
normal
cream.
ice cream. So I feel it's like you're literally scamming the consumers first of all,
Yeah.
and second is it's I feel the healthcare industry has also gotten so much expensive that it is just so much negative on us. Like imagine we are having bad food, you're giving us so much sugar by giving us the fake proportions, and then we have to go to a doctor and then pay so much of healthcare. But there also people are doing scams. Like what I have seen, there's so much scams in like I think private hospitals, if I'm not wrong, people asking for a lot more money and not getting those treatments. So, do you have any views on this?
Absolutely, you're spot on that. So I'll start with the first part of what you said. So it's 50% advertisement, 50% commission. Actual substance is missing in this whole story.
Exactly.
On the other hand, you're seeing the other flip side of it. You're seeing yes, I think that's where I talked about responsible consumerism, ethical consumerism, because if we are today to begin that wave, responsible consumerism, where we are disclosing what we are adding into it, and truthfully, like a person who's selling that bread today, There was a time when that bread, if you open it and the next day it would get fungus. Today, 1 week it doesn't get. It's because of all the GMOs and preservatives being added into it. And you're consuming it daily. So a healthy bread today. 2, looking at reiterating the fact about a farm to a plate. How do I keep the food safe? Hormones being injected to these animals. 2, chemicals being added, preservatives being added, colors being added. So where do I draw the line? I think drawing the line starts with minimalism. And looking at a little bit of it in terms of understanding what is my body need, spending a little time understanding the nutrition that you need based on your palate, based on your culture, based on whatever, and thereafter looking at aspect of keeping it healthy will make a difference. You need to spend some time on your own health, on your own food, on what you're doing. Spend some time on the label that you're picking up over there in the shop. And then after that, yes, healthcare today is disease care. It's not healthcare anymore. We are dealing with disease care. So today we are talking more on health span and not lifespan. Now for me, I think at this perspective, I would say that healthcare has become more of disease care and health departments run disease care. So yes, I call them the 3 C's. There is lack of commitment and concern. There is commercialization. And there is lack of and there is too much of there's lack of proper care. So if there is lack of concern, if there is commercialization, it automatically converts into a commercial venture, and that's when you start seeing that yes, the healthcare system is letting me down today. So somewhere it's our responsibility, and I'm a part of it, that us as doctors should reinforce this and have to build the faith into the healthcare systems to ensure and say that genuinely that we are concerned and we care, and there should be lack of commercialization in this area, and concern should increase and care should be increased in this area.
But I have one more question in this, that in India, like the government hospitals, a lot of people, it's our taxes that is going to these hospitals. But I still feel, if we compare, this is one very asked up question, if we compare a government hospital in India to a US, it is too different. Why is that? Like, why are the necessities, the amenities, the care, the concern that you're talking is, I feel, a little less in India than in like the foreign countries?
So there are 2 types of practices in medicine: the capital medicine and the social medicine. A model like UK follows the social medicine, a follow like US follows the capital medicine. Okay, so I would say that in India, if you look at it, India has a blend of both social and capital medicine.
Yeah.
So the social medicine or the government hospital kind of an approach is still better than some of the US hospitals in my understanding, because in USA, if you want to get an appointment and you want to get an MRI, you'll have to wait for months.
Yeah.
You want to get a paracetamol, you'll have to wait for a day.
Even the prices are actually too high.
So capital medicine is not the right way to go, in my understanding, and US has actually failed very badly in it. I would say India is a great benchmark. India is a wonderful benchmark in terms of blending social and capital medicine. But that doesn't mean that we are the best. We still can improve a lot. We still can improve a lot in terms of showing our benchmark in a better standard. So while we've got a benchmark, and I call it the conscious capital way. So you don't be vulture capital, you be conscious capital. So you have wealth, you have value. So which means I'm paying you, give me value for that particular payment. Be genuine and give me the genuine care. Don't cheat me for it. And I think that's the kind of healthcare systems that we will have to evolve, where there is going to be a sense of concern, responsibility and accountability that we bring into the system, where patients know that they're not being duped for it, or the insurance companies are not being misutilized for it and exploited for. At the other end of it, I think, is also the part about owning of health as a commodity by yourself, where I believe fundamentally that we're going the wrong way altogether. A healthy society has less hospitals, less illnesses and less doctors. So if you're saying I want to build another 10,000 hospitals with 20,000 doctors and 30,000 more beds and 1 lakh more medicines, I think you're going the wrong way. So how do you create a healthy society where you bring health as the part of the positioning and wellness and prevention and not illness?
Absolutely.
Could be the future of health. This is what we will need to look at, in which the individuals owns the overall point of health as an asset to himself.
Correct. I also agree, and I would also like to add that I think, as humans, as a part of the country, I think everyone should be, at least whoever has the uh, availability of knowledge in maybe through their phone. I think people should also make that extra effort to have that a little bit knowledge about. For example, if I am coming to a doctor for so and so reason, I should have a little bit of idea what could happen, because if sometimes we go very blindsided into it, so we just are, and if we're going into a hospital which will probably cheat you in a certain way, I think it makes it very easy for them, because you don't know what's going to happen. So it's very easy for them to tell you XYZ or whatever is happening, and you will most likely have to believe it because you have zero idea of it. Because I feel like a little bit of knowledge in every sector is important, not just healthcare. Like you're saying that, like right now, a lot of things are improving. I think in the middle, when probably when we were, I think 15 or 16-year olds, I think at that time health was directly proportional to illness. If not, health was never a factor in anyone's life. You're living very normally until you're sick, and that's when you enter the hospital. But I think, those times when you are told that once in 6 7 months you should go to the dentist, there's nothing happening, but that normal casual checkups are important, only so you know that you never know what could be developing. But because you're going to the doctor only when you think there's a tooth pain, but now that tooth pain could be developing from 3 months ago when you ate something, but it's reacting now. So the idea is to just be very self-aware of your body and how it's reacting to different things. I
I
think
would put it in another frame and say that it is the era of informed decisions.
yeah.
So, today when I sit with a patient and I explain to them, I give them an informed decision. I don't decide for them. I tell them these are the overall facts, these are the data that support these facts. Based on these, we have coming to a diagnosis, and based on this, these are the options of treatments, and then you have choices in treatments.
Yeah,
And I think that would be a futuristic way to look at this whole approach to healthcare system and a patient-doctor relationship.
how do you think that the commercialization of hospitals will reduce in the future?
I don't see that changing. I don't see that changing at all. I see that yes, governments will come in with their regulations. They'll step in to kind of clip certain amount of exploitation of this whole era. But yet, I think as we move towards capital medicine, and if we are embracing it more and more, we will need to understand and imbibe conscious capitalistic approaches integrated into it, and a lot of them are realizing it, because the the end consumer, the patient is going to decide all of this, and that's where I think patient voices, governments, whether it's media, whether it's judiciary, will have to come together in bringing about such a social change. You see, and that's the only way we bring about an informed choice into the whole picture. And awareness brings about that change. Today, I have patients who have come to me who come with full information, and they sit and have a discussion and then come to decisions. That's the futuristic way to go for us.
No, I fully agree. Whether it's cancer or any other disease, or even if it's not a disease, for example, if there's someone who is pregnant and is or not able to get pregnant or wants to opt for other form, if you go very blindly with, I'm not saying the doctor would be wrong, but I'm just saying that you will have no say in it. You will have no questions to ask if you don't know what you're going into.
So, in addition, I would say that if you come to an ex-doctor who's limited into knowledge with only this many methods of treatments, that's a limitation he has. Now it'll be his responsibility to also explain, saying that I don't know this, and these are the new trends which I don't have, but those centers have. Sometimes we don't do disclose this, correct? And that's when you feel that it's your responsibility now additionally to also have a broader view on such questions, to understand where is the spectrum of options, can I ask him more such kind of guided questions and then take an informed decision?
But I have a question for this. Don't you feel a lot of people won't, or I'm talking from a perspective of the people in the villages, they won't have an access to such
Yeah.
information. And I feel it's only for the I shouldn't say it, but like for the privilege to get the information, because if I go to a village and if I ask a woman about IVF, I really don't think she would know it. No. So I think having that perspective of every human going to an, like, knowing what is going to happen, I don't think it's possible.
I work at villages. Okay, I work at villages. I go to the grassroots and I spend time at gram panchayats with the village health committees. I've seen what has happened today is Airtel, Jio, Coke, and Uncle Chips or whatever those chips have all reached there. So something, I mean, I'm saying that the way I have seen a Paytm reached a corner of a village which I couldn't have imagined would have been digitalized. Or to recently be installing some 7G in a
7G.
in a blind spot area with the collaboration with the Japanese teams. I am seeing that access to technology has empowered us with information. Absolutely. At corners. But yet there are blind spots, like you said.
Yeah.
But it can be bridged with governments taking the lead role. And governments today spend the least on mass media campaigns.
I agree.
So somewhere, I think the most important expenditure would be mass media campaigns for behavioral change, mass media campaign for awareness on such kind of important priorities that they would want to take.
Very true.
Could go a long way for the governments to reduce the burden of healthcare.
Yeah, even I feel like awareness about health in like people working in the mining industry, they don't know, like they can opt for things that can protect their body, or who works in the coal mining, like those things that can help them. Because I saw a video and there was a girl who was working in, like, it was so hot in Uttar Pradesh and her skin was burning, but she did not know how to protect it. So I think such awareness where she could wear like a scarf, or just basic things how to protect yourself can, I think, go really far for a country to.
So that's a very valid point, and I think here is where governments and organizations have to take responsibilities.
Yeah.
This is unethical if it is happening, because then because there are clear rules, there are labor rights, there are rules which protect us from saying that when somebody is working for certain amount of work, whether it's hours or whether it's a particular environment in which it's working, occupational health hazards mandate that you are protected and there is a vicarious liability on you. So I think somewhere these kind of things should get highlighted, brought into notice, and the organization should be held accountable for those.
I fully agree, because I don't think these places have awareness about what kind of diseases exist also. Basics, of course, I think they might know, like say fever, XYZ, but I think at the higher level where there are diseases, I think there are diseases even we are not aware of,
Yeah,
which will only
definitely.
come into picture when it happens in front of your eyes. But I feel like there's no awareness of a lot of diseases and their symptoms. Like it is as small as, I think when we were in school, we were made aware of, this is really off topic, but we were made aware of, say, bad touch and good touch. Hence, we got to know about it. At a very young age, there were people who came and spoke about it, and then you understand. There were people who came in and spoke to us about, say, anxiety and depression at a very young age. Hence, we knew that things like this exist, and if it happens to you, you will know in a certain way. I feel like those kind of uh, awareness, say rallies or something, should go on in smaller parts of the countries, or probably where maybe they have access to knowledge but they don't know what to research about. They do have internet, but what do they use that internet for? They can't. I don't think they will just randomly go on saying what are the diseases in the world.
Yeah.
The idea is never put into them that this is something that you can research. There's a lot of things that people are using the internet for, but I don't think the idea is taught to them that you can also research it for your own benefits. And I think in the world we're living in, it's very new for people to think about just themselves, because it is also taboo that you're too selfish. Like, especially, I don't even think that's a concept in the villages, that think about yourself or learn about what's happening to you. It's, I don't think it's done very
Yeah,
casually.
also I feel with the villages one, I feel what I have seen, because I come from the north side and my area is a lot of village areas there. People have a phone but they only know to how to make a call. Or max to max, the male guy of the family will know how to pay, like
Yeah,
use a Paytm.
I think
Apart,
not just that, Ishita. I think a lot of people have access to a lot of social media platforms that they are very easily equipped to.
yeah.
Yeah, like how's, if there are, like, for example, people who, I mean, they can very easily get into the idea of how to use a social media platform, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram. That is very easily self-taught or learned from the world. But I think the important parts of life is not being touched, even if there's the availability of internet in every part of the world.
I think democratization of information, especially the most relevant ones, and I think like how government is doing that, these are the 9 must apps you should have to kind of have an idea about what's going around you. Things like that could help, and I think platforms like yours could be a good way to actually consolidate these and say that these are 7, 8 of the information or sites or things which are democratized, which are not having any capital intent to kind of commercialize it or do it, but have a larger goal. For example, psychology, there's your those and there are groups that are doing this kind of work, who are out there at offices, out there at schools, colleges, and things like that. I think we need to kind of aggregate platforms like these based on issues and promote them, and that could be a way by which we actually bring about small change.
Yeah, I think I mean, I just got a very flowing random thought. Like, you know how during COVID there was this one app, I think Arogya Setu, where everyone had to have it. I mean, had to in terms of for your own safety. It was reached to, like, it was something that was reached to the larger audience. I think maybe like an app like that, which has probably a lot of languages that reaches, because I think, I mean, India does have a lot of languages. So an app with information on all, in all languages. And I think information where we can't even bombard people with information, because who's going to read? There's no one who's going to read, and no one has so much time to read so much information. It'll be like a news channel, but not about politics.
And we are also entering into an era of attentionless learning and micro learning.
Absolutely.